On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Ontological Mysterium by Horrendous. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal and we like to talk about it. And today we're talking about the brand new album by American death metal band Horrendous.
Hot off the press. And I feel like it's pigeonholing them a bit much to just call them death metal. After having listened to this especially.
Progressive death metal is a more appropriate term.
Progressive death metal / smooth jazz / yeah.
They have a lot of influences, right, but it branches out of progressive death metal.
It's all rooted in progressive death metal.
That's the core of their sound, the center of sort of very much in the vein of late period death, I would say.
And there's some like deathcore and metalcore in here a bit too.
There's some influences from some other genres. There's a little bit of doom metal here and there.
Here and there.
There's some kind of atmospheric influences. There's a lot of different stuff going on here. There's even like a little bit of grindcore now and then. So there's a lot going on certainly in their sound on this album. That's one of the things that I love about this album.
Yeah.
So much is just how much they were willing to kind of experiment and how many different paths they were willing to take.
But it makes me wonder how much they did experiment that they threw away. That they, because all this it really works.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll talk more about Ontological Mysterium later on in the podcast. First, how are you doing, bud?
Fantastic. I got a sunburn last week.
You've been shedding your skin.
Yeah, and I realized
a reptile.
I realized because I messaged to somebody. I said, "Man, I had to vacuum. I had to vacuum at the radio station because of all the floor skin."
The floor.
I had to
floor skin.
I had to vacuum my floor skin.
What's up, everybody? We're floor skin. That sounds like one of the fake band names for Mouse Rat from Parks and Recreation.
While there we're floor skin.
Three skin.
Three skin.
Yeah. I can't remember if some of those. I think some of those were improv by Chris Pratt.
Right.
I think, but you're still recovering from your day at the water park.
Last week. A week ago.
1 week ago.
And I realized that I had a really bad sunburn, like where my belly sticks out and it's sort of facing up. That part of your belly.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is really bad sunburn. I realized it was a rash. It was a heat rash.
Oh, wow.
And so I had to put Bactine on it and some Benadryl cream. And
I just can't believe you didn't wear any sunscreen whatsoever last week.
Right.
It just seems like...
I don't normally get burned that bad, though. I mean, when I wasn't outside very long. But I did realize that a couple of the medications that I'm on are making me more photosensitive.
More susceptible to the sunburn.
Right.
And it was also a deceptive sort of day because it wasn't particularly sunny out.
Right.
And that gets you in the mindset of like, oh, I don't need to wear sunscreen. But the thing about UV rays, they don't give two shits about clouds.
Right.
UV rays go straight through them fucking things. So always, everybody going outside for a long period of time, get your sunscreen on.
Indeed.
Although it's not quite depending upon how long you're outside and how much snow there is during the wintertime, it's not quite as important if you're at an extreme not even necessarily extreme, but if the sun is at a very oblique angle, you're a bit
You're protected.
You can get away with less sunscreen, I would imagine, because there's more atmosphere for all the shit to travel through.
That's why in December I just walk around nude outside all the time.
Yep. That's a great thing to do in North Dakota in December.
Absolutely.
Walk around outside naked.
And you won't get in trouble because when it's 10 below, your twig and berries just hole up inside you.
Exactly. So no one can see anything.
Yeah, they're in there.
It's all gone. Well, and also, even if people did call the cops, what are they going to do? Go outside to get you?
Exactly.
It's too cold out. They don't want to do that.
And they're nude.
You can get away with any crime in North Dakota in the winter as long as it's outside.
Right.
That's my legal advice.
If you're in North Dakota and it's below zero and you see a cop, just floor it.
Exactly. They're not going to do anything.
No.
It's too cold to do anything.
Exactly.
That's how it works. Crime is only a thing in North Dakota during the summer.
Exactly. No crime happens doesn't even happen during the winter.
Exactly.
They don't even count it as happening.
Nothing happens during the winter. We all hibernate.
Exactly.
Everyone sleeps for 9 months. And then we wake up for June.
Very hungry, very thin, very svelte.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This has been a weird August.
It has been a weird August.
It's been a really weird August. We've had a couple of days in the 90s, but other than that, it's been 70s, low 80s, and it's rained a lot, which is not typical for August in North Dakota.
Right.
Usually it's dry as fuck.
Dry and hot in August.
Dry and hot, and it's been... Today is disgusting outside.
Well, you saw we're gonna get a thunderstorm tonight, right?
Yeah. It's been absolutely disgusting outside all day today. It's so humid and muggy. It's like the most humid day of the year I can recall so far. And I would know these things because I walk to work every goddamn day.
Right.
It's not a very long walk, but I have to...
It's like 5-6 miles, something like that.
Yeah. It's the walk that everyone's parents had to school.
Right, uphill.
Uphill both ways, somehow.
And it smells like asphalt out there.
Yeah. They're finally finishing the parking lot. And so there are fumes of fresh asphalt outside. And my brain does not like it.
Right.
I've had a headache all day, and I've just been in a fog. My afternoon responsibilities at work in particular are such a pain in the ass to do when I have a headache. It doesn't necessarily take me longer, but I don't be surprised if there are some really questionable choices tomorrow on the log as far as like, why is that song there? It's because I was going, that could, fuck it, I don't care. Sure, whatever. I just gotta move on.
2 o'clock was all polka.
It's oh god, I can't I become fucking useless whenever I have like a headache. I can't do fucking anything.
Well, if you'd have told me, I'd have brought over some like whiskey or something.
Yeah, that whiskey, famous for helping with headaches.
Oh yeah, it totally reduces awareness of headaches.
I've never found that to be the case with alcohol for me.
Really?
As far as like being a decent, it doesn't like not suppressing that kind of pain anyway. At least, like all the various times back when I used to actually drink any amount of alcohol, other than like once every couple of months.
Right.
If I had a headache, I would usually not drink because I found that it would just make it worse.
Sure.
Like unless you get really drunk to the point where you're not aware of anything. If I would have just like, if I already had a headache as like, oh, if I have a glass of whiskey, it's going to make things way fucking worse.
Oh no, you need to have at least 4.
4 glasses. Excuse me, sir. Could I have 4 glasses of whiskey? That always felt weird to me at bars, because that's like, for most of the time that I've been able to drink, my preferred drink has been whiskey of some variety.
Sure.
And I don't care to do shots, but if I'm at a bar and I want whiskey, I always feel kind of weird. Mostly because of the kinds of bars that I would get dragged to. They weren't the types of places where people would go and just drink some whiskey neat. Like going up to the bar and being like, hey, could I have, and I would feel weird because I wouldn't know how to order it.
Yeah.
Because I would feel like I'd be like, can I have a couple fingers of whiskey? Like, as if that was a thing you could order. I would just like, it never felt right. Because because I prefer to drink at home. I don't know how to order these things. So, if I'm at home, I can just pour myself however much whiskey I want in my glass. Right. But suddenly I need to now know the terms and stuff. And it would feel weird.
Give me a double Jameson neat.
Yeah. That's the thing is like, can I have a double of this? Neat. But I didn't know any of that shit.
Right.
Because it's also not like a cocktail where you just say the name of the cocktail and they make it. And whatever size you get is the size you get. It felt weird as opposed to just ordering a beer or something like that.
Right.
I would feel like a weirdo, but it's like, it's just fucking whiskey. I just don't want, we
have a good whiskey bar here in Minot.
Which bar is that?
It's one you never think of. It's the one in the Grand International.
Oh, does it have a name?
I can't remember the name of it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know there's a bar in the Grand.
It's just a tiny little bar. They got all the really good. Go in there. Yes, I'll have a Lefroy, please.
They got some decent scotch.
Yeah.
Was it? There was a remote that we did for the hole-in-one contest,
right?
And that was at the Elevation,
which is not the Elevation anymore.
Yeah, which is the bar and restaurant at the country club,
right?
And they had a $500 bottle of scotch there.
Nice.
That was really expensive bottles of whiskey. I find a little confusing because it's like, unless you're really rich, it's one of those things where you buy it, and at what point do you go, all right, time to drink some of this?
It's a prestige thing. It has nothing to do with,
because it's like
quality only gets so good.
People always talk about sports cars like this. It's like, people bought that sports car, but you're never gonna drive it. It's like, but you can drive it,
right?
And it's like the vast majority of like these really expensive sports cars, it's like, yeah, they look really good. They might have a very comfortable interior, and it's a luxurious thing, but they can also go really fucking fast,
right?
And are like, and will perform really well on a track and everything. Like, you can get that out of it. You can't do that sort of shit with a bottle of whiskey, right? Like
go fast in a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah. I'm trying to. I think whatever coherent thought I had has started to fall apart. Where it's like the only utility a bottle of whiskey has, it is to drink. You can't sit in it. It doesn't have all these luxurious features.
Right.
It's not even that pretty.
It's not just antiseptic.
It's a bottle. It's a bottle of liquid.
Right.
Ultimately, maybe the bottle looks nice, but it's a bottle of liquid. If you're not going to drink it, all you have is like, that thing is expensive, and that's stupid.
So I know Chuck has one. Chuck has like a $5,000 bottle of scotch hidden
somewhere
up there, and if you're a close friend of his, occasionally you'll go back and each do a shot.
Yeah. And I guess there's some value, like Pappy Van Winkle is the most is supposed to be the best bourbon that exists, and bottles of it go oftentimes for upwards of $1,000.
Sure.
Although there's a YouTube channel that I watch somewhat sporadically called How to Drink.
Yes, I watched that too.
And he got a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle and did some blind taste tests comparing it to other like top shelf, but at most like $100-something bottles of bourbon. And he could not tell the difference.
Right.
And he got done with that blind taste test and looked at the results and went like, okay, either Pappy is not as good as everyone thinks it is, or I have lost all credibility when it comes to my taste in bourbon.
No.
And it's almost certainly that it's just not as good as everyone says. It's like fucking Stradivarius violins.
Sure.
Where people always say, oh, they just have a sound that they can't be produced anymore. They sound more beautiful than anything. But every single time they've done like blind tests with musicians, blind or double blind, as empirical as they can possibly get it, musicians can't tell the difference. They can't tell that they're playing. They prefer far less expensive and rare. Like they'll say that much less expensive violins are the better sounding ones.
Right.
And then it's like, and then when they find out that like, oh, that one that you liked less was a Stradivari, they start to revise their comments. It's like, no, you said what you said.
Too late.
So it's like, it's just the price point. It's just the rarity.
Right. That puts the idea in your mind
that it's better.
Right. Yeah. Like the violins made by the Italian luthier Federico Yamaha.
Federico Yamaha.
Yeah.
Famous Federico Yamaha.
Right.
Made is he the same guy that makes those Italian motorcycles?
I believe so.
Oh, okay.
Or it's the same family.
It's the same family.
The famous Yamaha
family
of Genoa
of Italy.
Yeah.
I mean, the countries are a similar size and shape.
True.
If you were to look at them side by side, Japan and Italy do kind of look a little bit like each other.
A bit. I mean, they're like long and narrow.
Yeah, and there's some islands. Yeah. I mean, Japan is
an island. Several islands. Yeah,
several islands, but
I've been on at least one of them.
Which island were you on?
Okinawa.
Okay, yeah. So was Matt. Matt was in Okinawa. He was in the Marines. I don't know. I've
Are you all right?
No, I've already talked about how my brain hurts.
Right. Because of all the scotch.
Yes, because of all the scotch that I've been drinking.
Yes.
I've been drinking so much alcohol.
You're all right.
You're all right.
You're
girl. Yeah. What have I been doing?
Yeah, what you been doing lately?
I'm playing Baldur's Gate.
Sure.
Mostly. And I have also continued to listen to Warhammer audiobooks.
Nice.
I'm now on the third one in that series because I was at first I was like, I'm only gonna use Audible credits on these and get them for free, basically. Other than the $15 a month or whatever.
Right.
But then I was like, I gotta keep listening, so I bought the next one in the series. They go fast, primarily just because of the way that I do my job. I will consume at least 3 hours of that a day. So I will go through an entire book, usually more than an entire book a week. Some of them are like all of them for the audiobooks seem to be between 8 and 12 hours. So yeah, I'm going through them quicker than I expected I would be able to, which is kind of the point of audiobooks. But
I think I've only ever listened to, I've listened to 2 audiobooks, I think, in my entire life.
Do you remember what they were?
It was something written by Penn Jillette.
Interesting.
I'm trying to remember what the book was. And then it was How the Mind Works by Steven Pinker.
But why those 2?
I don't know. Yeah. Because I had Audible for a while, and then I realized I'm not using it.
Yeah. I depending upon if I find something else to listen to, I may or may not cancel my subscription. I don't know. It also would feel weird. Like, I feel like this is how they get you, because you start listening to like a series or something like that, and you start paying for, like, you're like, oh, you run out of credits and you start paying for the books. And then you're like, all right, well, I finished that series and I don't have another thing I want to listen to, but I've invested so much money into this library of audiobooks. It would be a waste of money to stop now. And they get you with the sunk cost fallacy, those bastards.
Right.
But at least if I just keep listening to Warhammer books, I will probably be getting my money's worth out of that subscription for a long while, because there's a lot of them.
There's 50 of them.
Yeah. That's just in this series. That's not counting all of the other ones that are not in this particular series.
Are they all canon?
Yes and no. I mean, the no is a much smaller no. But it's sort of a hand wavy thing that people in the fan base do to try and assuage any like major contradictions, because there's dozens of different authors that write for Black Library. And so there end up being contradictions and like wildly different takes on characters.
Sure. Different hair colors.
Yes. And so the way that the fan base tends to hand wave that is by saying like, oh, these are all like historical accounts that are unreliable or something like that.
From an unreliable narrator.
Yeah. And it's like, that's not the way that these are being written, though. It's like glitches, people hand waving glitches in Assassin's Creed by saying like, oh, it's just the Animus acting up. It's
exactly.
Like, fucking stop it.
No, don't
excuse the lazy bullshit. But speaking of Warhammer, there's hands-on gameplay first impressions for Space Marine 2.
Yeah.
And it looks good. It looks good. I'm really excited. It looks like Gears of War meets God of War, which I think is, first of all, a really fun combo, and second of all, just a great way to explain Warhammer in general.
Yeah.
Like just the vibe of Warhammer 40K in general, I think that it's just a good way to describe that whole universe. And from, at least from like the gameplay, which is from the first however many missions, it has a lot of elements that I've really wanted in a Warhammer 40K video game for a while, which is that it seems to deal really well with the sense of scale in Warhammer, because that's the most bonkers insane thing about the entire Warhammer 40K universe, is how ludicrously huge the whole thing is. The massive amounts of troops, the insanely powerful weapons they have, the giant swarms of alien bugs consuming in a whole planet, and like the sheer insanity of the whole thing and how bombastic and massive it is has never really been like properly conveyed in a game. And like one of the things that really bugs me about a lot of 40K video games that have come out, where it's like the higher quality ones that have come out over the last couple of years, it seems like they always take place in the same fucking setting or a version of the same setting, which is over and over again, just various different iterations of steel corridors and hallways. Sure. Whether it's on a spaceship or in the undercity or the underhive of some hive city. It's always dark, cramped tunnels and hordes of enemies. That was in Space Hulk Deathwing, Necromunda Hired Gun, and most recently Darktide. All different versions of the same fucking thing, where it all takes place in these grungy steel hallways. And then in this gameplay preview for Space Marine 2, you have this big open muddy battlefield that looks like some shit out of World War I. There's Imperial guardsmen all over the place firing their laser rifles. There's tanks moving across the field. And then you are, a big, huge Space Marine,
right?
Who like the scale I think is great because you see Lieutenant Titus walking past a Imperial Guard like armored personnel carrier, and he looks bigger than it. Which like if you look at like some like real life early APCs like the M113, which was like the World War II armored personnel carrier with the open top, that they would later like put a roof on. Those are not particularly tall. Like they're at most like 6.5 feet tall, I think. So like a normal person next to them, like it's not that much bigger than a pickup truck. Captain Titus or Lieutenant Titus now, because he got a demotion between the games. But anyway, he's like 9 feet tall and, built like a brick shit house. So like looks fucking massive compared to these vehicles. And you're fighting Tyranids, so it's swarms of these alien bugs. They're all over the place. There's aircraft streaking through the sky and bombing shit. And it's like, yes, these are the epic battles I have wanted in like a high quality, like really high graphical fidelity 40K game that everyone seems to have ignored of just like, oh, we're going to have a co-op horde shooter set in the same 5 steel hallways again. And I'm really happy that Space Marine seems to be taking a much more epic sort of direction with it.
Nice.
At least I'm sure there will be many steel corridors in the game at some point. It's unavoidable, but there is at least some of the epic scale that, to me, that's what Warhammer 40K is that sort of stuff. That's what I like about the setting, and it just looks really fun. It's extremely gory combat, lots of melee in there. Different finishing moves, and then you have various different bolt guns. And there's only one short piece of gameplay I've been able to see that didn't have fucking commentary over it.
Yeah.
So I could actually hear the sound effects, but like the heavy bolt rifle sounds so chunky and beefy, which I love because to me, any Warhammer game that has bolters in it lives and dies on the way that the bolter sounds.
Nice.
Because it's such an iconic weapon. And the thing you have to remember about those guns is they aren't normal. It's not an assault rifle. It's a fully automatic rocket propelled grenade launcher.
Sure.
They fire 75 caliber rounds. So you can't have it sounding like a regular machine gun. It needs to like thwump. It needs to sound probably like a 50 cal is the most appropriate noise for it to make, but not even that is quite appropriate because it's firing rockets.
I think it'd be funny if there was an option in the game to make it go pew 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 pew.
I mean, that's kind of how las guns sound.
Really?
I mean, it depends on you. I think like different games make them sound different. I can't remember how they sound really good in Darktide. The las guns do. They don't sound puny, but that's sort of the joke is that like las guns, it's a literal laser rifle. It's 10,000 times better than anything we have in the modern day. But Warhammer is so fucking ludicrous that the las gun might as well be a flashlight. And so people like to joke that it just goes pew pew pew. But yeah, I'm really excited for Space Marine 2. And fucking, I don't know if it is. I think the review embargo lifted for Armored Core.
Really?
I don't know when I'm gonna have fucking time to play Armored Core. It's like there's so much stuff coming out. There's so many games that I want to play coming out, like or have come out or are about to come out. We're where I still haven't finished fucking Bloodborne. So it's like, before I start another FromSoft game, I want to finish the FromSoft game that I was in the middle of playing.
Well, you're not in the middle, but you're in the DLC.
Yeah, but I consider that to be the middle, because at this point in time, it's a part of the whole game experience, more or less.
But you're near the end of it.
I don't know how much more, because Lady Maria was not the final boss of that DLC.
Right.
She's not even the hardest boss in that DLC. So yeah, I don't know how much more. And FromSoft games are those kinds of games where it's like, I only have 3 more bosses to go. And those 3 bosses might take you as long as the entire rest of the game did. So,
I know.
Who knows? Who knows? You know what I know?
What do you know?
I know that Ontological Mysterium by Horrendous is a pretty fucking good album. So if you don't know about Horrendous is an American death metal band,
Philadelphia,
from Philadelphia. And we've talked about them on the podcast before. Not too long ago, we talked about Anareta, which was their album from 2015, I believe.
Was it 2015 or was it 2018?
2018 was Idol.
Right, that was Idol. Right.
And that was the last album to come out before this one. So there was a 5-year gap in their discography. And like for the last couple of years, I would go on Spotify and I would search Horrendous and just be like, maybe they put out an album and it snuck by me. And I would be very disappointed to find that I was incorrect in that assumption. And then it was a couple months ago, I think shortly after we had released the episode about Anareta, that I saw the lead single, which was, I believe, the title track, the lead single for this album, pop up, and it's like, oh my god, it's happening, it's finally happening, they're finally putting out a new album. And goddamn, it was worth the wait. I have to say, I think at least to my memory and to my ear, this might be one of, if not the most exquisitely produced death metal albums I have ever heard. The production is just so fucking good. At least through the headphones that I, through my earbuds, which are pretty nice earbuds. It sounds really, really good. The sound quality is great. All of the instruments seem really dialed in. It sounds clean but not clinical. It's it doesn't sound inhuman the way that some progressive or technical death metal bands get, where everything just sounds too tight, too clean. It sounds too sanitized. All of this just sounds right.
It sounds to me like they played it live a lot of times.
Yeah. Like they were all like they played it all together at once. And everything was just perfectly dialed in. I don't know anything about the production process for this album, but whatever they did, goddamn, I wish every fucking band did this. I guess not every band will get the most out of this style of production, I guess. And that's, for some bands, the way that they produce their albums is part of their style. But this just, oh God, everything just sounds perfect. It's so crazy to me how good this sounds. just the quality of it alone. Oh shit. Is that the rain?
Oh my. Yeah, it is.
I could hear through my fucking headphones how hard it is raining.
It is raining very hard out there.
Holy shit. Just like when I was listening to the whole thing for the first time yesterday, there were several times where I would hear just the sound of like a particular strum, and I would go, oh my God, like I can't believe it's like it. I haven't had a reaction to just the production on an album like this in such a long time. I don't know what it is. that I can't let go of in the way that this album was produced, that I think it's so good, because I feel like it can't be as good as I think it is. But it's just the way that I feel about it. Like, I don't know.
Right, because albums like this will often sell for upwards of $1,000.
Hey! But it's like, yeah, I don't know what element there is in there that is just like wormed its way into my brain and makes me go like, this is good. This is the best thing you've ever heard. And it doesn't hurt that the musicianship is fucking
fantastic,
top notch as well.
Right. In order to actually make this album, they have to have gotten to a point where they trust each other a lot.
Yeah. The one article I was reading, which was, I think, Pitchfork, was talking about that exact sort of thing, about how, you know, these guys have been playing together for such a long time that like the amount that they're able to both like stretch their legs in a certain way, but then also rein themselves in is remarkable. Like things get weird on this album, and they take some pretty strange paths or go down some weird cul-de-sacs, and then they bring it back. And it's remarkable.
Like the song Exogenesis.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Which one is that? Is that the one that starts out with the weird like
and it has the affected almost spoken vocals of the entire thing?
Yeah. Where it like the intro to Iron Man.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
I can't remember what effect what audio effect that would be called. Is that a phaser on there or that sort of thing?
Kind of.
But yeah, it starts with this really weird, like robotic sounding voice, which pops up, I believe, on Preterition Hymn. I think pops up for a little bit on that song as well.
Yeah, and you know what? It turns out that is it him doing all the vocals, the same vocals?
It's two guys.
Oh, it is two guys.
It's two guys.
Because there's someone in this band can really sing.
Yeah, and that's I think there's like a tiny bit of clean vocals on Idol.
Right.
But there's not a lot of.
Oh, crap. Sorry.
Did you open TikTok?
No, I didn't. Somebody sent me a snap. I didn't know it was going to be a video.
But yeah, there's a bit more clean singing on here as well. Every once in a while, there's some really Peter Steele-esque vocals on. Is that on the last song? Is that on Death Knell Ringeth?
Yeah.
There's some like Peter Steele-esque vocals there that it didn't feel out of. None of the weird shit that they did, while it's weird out of context, in the context of each one of these songs, nothing feels out of place to me.
Right.
Everything just feels like it belongs somehow.
So like how did they know that was going to work?
And it's like you said, probably just an immense amount of trust in each other as musicians, of just like trust in each other and trust in themselves, of like, we've been doing this long enough,
right?
That we believe we can pull this off.
Yeah, it's like you'll be hearing it'll be a really good chunky, like a almost thrashy death metal riff with the guitars, and then suddenly the bass is going.
Yeah, I mean it's obvious.
Happens a lot.
It's the most clearly audible fretless bass. Yeah, like you hear that and you go like, oh, that's obviously fretless bass. Like there's no way that isn't fretless bass. But like, yeah, the like something about the musicianship really reminds me of the amount of the at least the seeming amount of creative freedom that like the guys in Dream Theater give each other.
I got a lot of Dream Theater vibes from this.
Yeah. I was like, I had that for a couple songs, especially something about the guitar tone, especially like when they're doing like big leads, big melodic leads.
Right.
Something about that screamed John Petrucci to me. I don't like, I don't know exactly what about it, but something about that lead guitar tone was just like, there's something Petrucci about this. Something about the riffs and the way the leads were done what just felt kind of like Dream Theater to me, but much heavier, obviously, and through a death metal sort of scope.
There were parts of this where I actually got Converge vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that as well, of just especially, like Jane Doe era Converge, where they're just like, let's just make the
most balls out, goddamn.
Let's just make the most album that we can.
Yeah.
Was kind of seems to be how they did Jane Doe. It's like nothing they've done since then has been really anything close to what Jane Doe was. Mm-hmm. And it seems like they're willing to let it just be its own thing forever, which I kind of appreciate. Like their sound as of late is much like tighter, mm-hmm. And a lot more stripped down.
Right. It's a different sound.
They've developed quite a lot.
I always think that's weird when a band, had a successful album and they decide to go in a different direction and everybody complains that it wasn't the previous album.
Yeah.
And so then they go and they try to remake the one that was big.
And it just never works.
Never works.
The closest thing that Converge has done to that is when mm-hmm. they just performed the entire album live a couple of times. And there's a really high quality live recording of it that they released as an album mm-hmm. Of the first time they did that. Obviously that recaptures some of the feel because it's literally just the same thing.
Right. Obviously.
But,
oh shit.
Damn. That's like the first real big peal of thunder that I feel like I've heard all summer long.
Right.
Like we have not really had a proper thunderstorm, at least not one during waking hours.
Right.
And I almost always sleep all the way through thunderstorms.
Thunderstorms will make me sleep deeper.
Yeah, like I tend not to wake up for thunderstorms.
Right.
So I've been really disappointed this summer as far as the lack of thunderstorms that we've had. We have not had fucking anything. And now we're finally getting one, and I can't sit and look out my window because we're talking about a very good death metal album.
Right. I mean, we'll be done here shortly.
Yeah. The second song, Chrysopia,
Chrysopatia or something like that.
There's not a T in
There's
it.
no T?
Chrysopoeia. I don't know. The Archaeology of Dawn.
Yes.
Shall we say in the parentheses.
That's a kick-ass song.
And the opening, I was surprised at how fucking thrashy the opening of that song was. The opening riff there mm-hmm. of that song is really, really thrashy. And then it goes into all sorts of weird directions. I was trying to figure out, I guess it must be one of the two vocalists mm-hmm. That does the clean singing that pops up there. Mm-hmm. To me, it almost sounded like a woman's voice. And I was trying to look through like album credits or anything like that, and mm-hmm. I couldn't find any additional credits. So it must be one of the singers. But it almost sounded to me, I was like, who does this sound like to me? And I eventually realized it sounded like Reba Myers from Code Orange to me.
Oh, sure.
But I think if that was someone else, I haven't been able to find a credit for their part in that song. So I think it might just be one of the two vocalists. Mm-hmm. But that song goes to some wild places from like how energetic and thrashy it starts out with. Mm-hmm. It goes to some unexpected places later in the latter half of the song.
I did look down. It's just the same.
Yeah. This is like, wait, this can't be the same song still. I think that's the longest song on the album as well.
Right. It's a short album.
Yeah. And that is like the one complaint that I have about the album is that it's too goddamn short. There's
9 songs on here.
It's 9 songs. It's 37 minutes. I could have done with 20 more minutes. Mm-hmm. I could have done with 20 more minutes of this album. But there's something to be said for leaving people wanting more. Mm-hmm. And not overstaying your welcome.
Right.
And the phrase "kill your darlings" might be appropriately used somewhere in there. Of like, right. When you're in the process of making an album or writing a song, and you're going like, oh, this song is like too long, but there's this one section in there that I really want to get. It's like, no, just get rid of that one section. Mm-hmm. If you feel like the song is too long and you can't get that section to work, just get rid of it. or if this song doesn't fit in, don't put it on the album. Like, although I don't know if they would have had the problem of a song not fitting in on this album. It's not a complaint, but it is a statement, I would say, because all of the songs are great. However, I do think, especially compared to their previous albums, the various different styles that they choose does make it feel at times a bit disjointed. Like song to song. Once you're into the song, you're like, all right, this is the best thing ever. Yeah. And then you'll get finished with that one and start another one. You're like, that's kind of weird that these two are next to each other and we're going from that to this. Like it doesn't feel quite as cohesive as some of their other albums have felt. I don't think that is necessarily to this album's detriment, because I think the variety that's present here definitely works to their advantage. I think there's just more to love here when it comes to the various different styles, because their sound has changed and evolved from album to album before, although I don't think ever quite so drastically as this.
It's still definitely horrendous.
It's very much still them.
Yeah.
That opening song is a fairly short track.
Right.
That one, you listen to the opening and you're like, you listen to that and go like, this is horrendous. Like this, like it doesn't sound like them at first. And then there's this massive, just absolutely gorgeous guitar solo at the end of that track. Just beautiful, beautiful guitar solo at the end of that track. And then sort of from then on, it becomes more of a horrendous album, despite the fact that it is like still so wild and weird. All things considered. But I don't know. I really like this. What's your favorite song on this album?
I think it would depend on my mood. Yeah. Because I really like Cult of Shadowa.
Okay.
I love that song. I really like the aforementioned
Chrysopai.
Yeah.
The Archaeology of Dawn.
The Archaeology of Dawn. And I also really love the title track.
Yeah. I really like the title track as well. But I would say the archaeology. I can't even say the
archaeology.
The part that should be easier. The Archaeology of Dawn.
It's fantastic.
I will say it is my favorite, but it's not miles ahead of.
Right. It's not head and shoulders above. It's it's a standout, but.
I would agree with you in the sense that I feel like it depends on my mood.
Yeah.
Of Preterition Hymn, I really like.
Great song
as well.
There's not a bad song on here.
Yeah, I agree with that. There is so much good stuff. I do think it is interesting. And I don't know if this was intentional, but the last line on the last song on this 37-minute album is "Time is too fucking short." And I would agree. I wish we had more. And I hope we don't have to wait another 5 years for more music from this band. That's like one of the things that kills me as a music fan sometimes when I find a band that I really love and they shortly after I get into them, they put out a new album. And I'm like, all right, cool. That's great.
And we're done.
It's then either the band ceases to exist or they don't make another album for 5 fucking years, which is what happened when I got into Horrendous. I got into Horrendous right after Idol came out.
Sure.
And I heard some buzz about it and I was like, wow, this album's really good. This is like the best death metal album I've ever heard.
And then 5 years later.
And I had to wait 5 goddamn years for another one.
Oh geez.
So I hope it's not quite so long.
5 years from now, I'll be filthy whore.
You'll be filthy whore years old.
Yes, I will be.
But that's it's so fucking nonsensical.
That stems from being a bingo caller, by the way.
Yes, because you have come up with
different words for
numbers.
Yeah, and it's usually something very sophomoric.
Yes, I mean you call him bingo, you might as well.
Yeah. And what's really great is when you get an audience that you're calling bingo to, and you say this really dirty and sophomoric things, and you get these 80-year-old women just beady-eyed at you. Knock it off.
You're at a bar.
Yeah, you're at a bar, lady.
Chill. Everyone's 21 or older.
And not an in-town bar.
We're out in the sticks.
This bar technically qualifies as a Quonset.
So chill.
Cool your tits.
Cool your tits, madam. What medal are you bestowing upon Ontological Mysterium like Maz Kanata to Chewbacca?
This definitely gets a gold.
Yeah. It's a gold.
Yeah.
It's a gold. This album. It's what just popped into my head was the narrator from the opening of Elden Ring. Ontological Mysterium,
the loathsome dung eater,
and Gideon Ofnir, the all-knowing. So next week, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I thought maybe something you hadn't heard all of, or maybe you've heard some of it, but maybe not. Thought we'd go back to 1998.
1998
for the debut and self-titled album by System of a Down.
Sure, yeah. Well, let's listen to some System of a Down. Some Soad.
Soad.
I'm gonna drink some Soad.
Dyslexic kid.
Yeah, hell yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right.
So System of a Down next week. And then after that, it'll be non-metal September.
It'll be September.
It'll be September. So wake me up when it ends.
Are we going to listen to some Green Day? Is that what you're hinting at here?
No. We will be listening to the new Boy Genius album.
All right.
Which is came out in like April, I think. But we're gonna be listening to that. So yeah. Thank you everybody for listening to another episode of the Bronze Metalist Podcast. If you would like to, go ahead and follow us on social media on that thing that the shithead from South Africa owns, whatever it's called.
X
Twitter. It used to be Twitter.
Twixer.
Former the website formerly known as Twitter.
Right.
Go ahead and follow us on there.
Because Elon Musk is the new Prince.
No,
he's not.
Prince had talent. Or Facebook.
Sure.
And why don't you go ahead and subscribe to our feed on whatever it is you're using to listen to us right now, whatever that might happen to be. So thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Bronze Medalist Podcast. I'm Kit.
I'm OJ.
Congratulations.